If your 2025 deer season didn't go the way that you hoped, you're not alone. Every single year, thousands of hunters walk out of the woods after their final sit of the season feeling frustrated. You listen to the podcast, you watch all of the videos, you had trail cam pictures of bucks that you would have loved to put your tag around, but you never saw them in daylight when you're actually in the tree. And now you're ending the season feeling defeated and discouraged. But here is the part that most hunters never stop to consider. If you don't take the time to understand why things went wrong in 2025, you're going to enter into the 2026 season carrying the same exact problems. Now, you've probably heard that old saying that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again but expecting different results, and I believe that that perfectly describes how most hunters approach deer season. Now, this video is not going to be telling you to go out there and buy the latest gear or buy the latest camo or chasing some trendy tactic. It's all about those deeper foundational reasons that hunters fail, the ones that I feel that nobody really talks about in depth but almost every single hunter struggles with. And once you begin to understand these reasons, you can begin to make adjustments right now that is going to completely change the path of your 2026 season. So I'm going to go ahead and break down the 4 biggest factors that likely held you back this season and the practical changes that are going to help you walk into next fall with clarity, intention, and a far better chance of filling your tag. And by the way, I'm Greg Kazmersky. My whole goal with this content is to help hunters become smarter and more effective woodsmen. I design whitetail habitat for landowners, and I help Ohio hunters buy and sell high-quality hunting land. Every single thing that I do comes back to helping hunters make better decisions in the woods and not rely on luck. So let's dive in. Now, one of the biggest breakthroughs that I've ever had in the whitetail woods was when I finally realized a very uncomfortable truth. I was obsessed with tactics, but I did not fully understand the deer. In my late teens and early 20s, I was that guy watching every video, listening to every podcast, and trying every single hot tactic that I heard people talking about. And sure, I knew exactly how other hunters were filling their tags, but when I got out into the woods myself, nothing lined up the way that it did in those videos. And that's when it finally clicked. Those tactics are only going to take you so far. If you don't understand the principles behind deer behavior, you're going to spend your entire season bouncing from one tactic to the next, hoping that the next one is finally going to be your answer. And honestly, I feel that this is where most hunters get stuck. They hear about a bedding area sit, so they go out there and try it. Then a scrape week strategy, so they make a switch. Then a new rut tactic drops, and suddenly a month has gone by, and they've learned nothing about the deer's shifting behavior. But in reality, the hunters who are out there consistently filling their tags are not the ones who are constantly chasing the tactics. They are the ones that are understanding why deer do what they do. Because once you understand the principles, the movement patterns, the behavior, how the deer are reacting to the hunting pressure, choosing the right tactic is going to be easy. Let's go ahead and take late October as an example. Scrapes are on fire and the deer are extremely active. The principle here is understanding why exactly the activity has increased. The bucks are expanding their range, checking on different doe groups, and cruising downwind of the sign. And the tactic here might be setting up on the downwind side of that primary scrape. But here's the big problem with that. If you don't understand how a buck is traveling through the area, you might plan your access route right down where he's going to walk to check that scrape location, and that tactic is completely useless. Now, this is a subtle shift, but it changes absolutely everything. Instead of asking yourself, what tactic should I use, you start asking, what are the deer actually doing and what tactic fits that situation? That is the mindset shift that's going to stop the guessing game. It's what allows you as a hunter to build a system that's going to work on any property in any state under any conditions. Understand the deer first and apply the tactic second. That is going to be the order that leads to consistent success. Now, one of the best tools we have out there today for understanding deer is the trail camera. When it's used the right way, they can teach you why deer behave the way that they do, not just when they show up. But here's the mistake that a lot of hunters make, and I've been guilty of this one plenty of times. They start letting their cameras make decisions for them. If you've ever hunted near one of your camera locations, you already know how much activity goes on that your camera doesn't catch. A deer can easily skirt just outside of the frame or completely avoid the camera altogether. Your camera is only going to show a tiny sliver of what's actually happening out there, so why would you base your entire hunt on what a camera shows? Now, what trail cameras can do when they're used intentionally is help you understand how deer are using your property over time. They can reveal things like the seasonal shifts in deer behavior and how exactly those deer are reacting to hunting pressure. And if you hang them with purpose, they can make you a better woodsman, not a more dependent one. Let's go ahead and take a staging area between bedding and food for an example. If you got tons of pictures the first couple weeks of the season and then suddenly your camera goes dark, That's going to tell you something very important. Either the bedding's changed or the food source has shifted and the deer have adjusted with it. Now you have this real data that you can use in following years, not to predict a specific sit, but to understand the deer patterns. And look, here at the end of 2025, there are a countless number of ways to log and track all of your trail camera data. For a very long time, I was a spreadsheet guy. But recently I started using an app that a good hunting buddy of mine created. It's called HuntRegs, and this takes the data that I'm already collecting and lays it out in a way that saves me a ton of time and shows me those trends automatically. Now, this is not a pitch or an ad. I just wanted to simply share the tools with you guys that I use to make my whole process easier. So the takeaway here is very simple. Trail cameras should not tell you when to hunt, but they should help you understand why deer do what they do so you can go out there and make smarter decisions with or without a photo. Now, one thing that I've learned over the years, and I know that some people are going to roll their eyes at this, is that your mindset matters a lot more than you think. I'm a huge believer that if you lock onto a goal with enough intention and focus, you can create the conditions for it to happen. But there is a huge difference between believing something will happen and forcing something to happen. Because the moment that you start forcing something, you stop thinking logically, and you're going to start acting out of frustration rather than observation. You misread the deer sign, you push into an area too soon, or you give up on a spot too early because it should have happened already, and this is where your season really falls apart. Now, I've spent years sharpening my mindset out in the woods, and I genuinely think that it's made me a far more consistent hunter. Now, it's not because I manifest the deer into existence, but because I stay engaged, present, and patient enough to make the right decisions when it counts. I don't try to force anything anymore. I don't decide ahead of time when something has to happen. I simply believe it will happen, and I let the journey play out. That mindset keeps me from burning out, making emotional decisions, and spiraling when a plan doesn't pay off immediately, and it allows me to stay locked in when most hunters have already checked out. Because here's the honest truth that I believe: if you can stay engaged, curious, and focused on learning, even on those slow and frustrating days, you are going to enjoy the hunt more and become significantly more effective. And even if I go an entire season without tagging the buck that I'm after, that entire stretch of intentional hunting, scouting, and staying locked into the process is going to make me a better hunter in the long run. Mindset is not about positivity, it's about resilience, and that resilience is going to keep you learning instead of forcing. And when you keep learning, success is eventually going to catch up. Last but definitely not least, we have the off-season, and the off-season is going to be the separator. This is going to be the thing that creates consistent hunters. The off-season is the only time of the year when your entire focus can be on learning. You're not worried about bumping deer, blowing a hunt, or messing up a travel pattern. You finally have that freedom to investigate why things did or didn't happen during the season. Every tactic that you tried, every piece of trail camera data that you collected, every close call, and every empty sit, this is where all of that stuff begins to make sense. But if you're not going to spend your off-season breaking those things down, really studying what worked, what didn't, and why all of it happened, you're going to find yourself in the same exact spot next December watching the same video for the same reasons. And as much as I love seeing my videos perform well, I would rather you watch content in the off season that actually moves the needle forward instead of circling back to this one next off season because nothing's changed. Just like you set goals during the hunting season, you can set goals for the off season as well. If you think that there is an area that was bedding but you were never fully sure, now is the time to dive in. Walk the trails, find the beds, and study those entry and exit routes and figure out how deer are truly using that area. Or if you hunted a pinch point that was absolutely on fire during the chase phase, don't just log that as a good rut spot. Backtrack it, study the terrain, understand why those bucks were funneling through there and how they were getting to it. This is going to be the window when clarity happens. There's no pressure, no timeline, no expectations. It's just you in the woods and understanding how the deer are using the landscape. And the hunters who consistently improve year after year are the ones who treat the off season as a part of the process, not a break from it. Because when you step into next fall with a deeper understanding of the land and the deer that you're hunting, you're not guessing anymore. You're building on that foundation you already created when the woods were quiet. So to wrap this one up, if the 2025 deer season didn't go the way that you hoped, the good news is this: you now know exactly why and what to fix before the 2026 season rolls around. Because when you zoom out and look back at everything that we covered, it all comes back to 4 core areas that separate a frustrating season from a successful one. First, understanding the principles over tactics. When you stop chasing the newest trends and start understanding the deer behavior at a foundational level, every single decision that you make in the woods becomes clearer. You're no longer guessing, you're interpreting what the deer are actually actually doing. Second, use trail cameras as a learning tool, not as a crutch. Cameras can teach you patterns, seasonal shifts, and how deer are responding to hunting pressure, but they should never be the only reason you decide whether to hunt or whether to stay at home. They inform your decisions, they don't make them. Third, sharpening your mindset. A strong and steady mindset is one of the most overlooked skills in deer hunting. When you stop trying to force outcomes and instead you stay focused, present, and committed to the process, you make better decisions and you become a better hunter over time. Finally, the off-season. If you're going to take anything from the video, let it be this. The off-season is where you break old habits, investigate what actually happened, and rebuild your approach from the ground up. This is where the clarity comes from and next year's success is built. Because if you take these 4 areas seriously, if you understand the principles of deer movement, if you use your tools correctly, if you sharpen your mindset, and if you treat the off-season as part of your journey, you are not going to walk into the 2026 deer season the same one you left the 2025 deer season as. You're going to walk in with intention, with clarity, with confidence, and with a path that leads to a very different outcome next fall. I hope that this one helped you reset, refocus, and rebuild heading into the new year. Thank you all for watching, and let's go out there and make 2026 the best season yet.